Hey, checking in with the first book of Richard Wagamese is One Native Life, 2008 um, autobiography. Autobiography in kind of small snippets, small essays, small little beautiful vignettes. This is book one, which is tracks 1 to 18, where it's Earth, which you come from talking about coming from the Earth, and this is sort of the beginning stories of his life as a kid. Um, him being somebody who um, was uh, abandoned by his birth parents, who were incredibly messed up by having being sucked into native residential schools. Really fucked up that way. Um, Gone off on a bender, left him and his siblings behind. So he ended up getting adopted out to various places, and a lot of this is talking about that time, um, about going fishing with a Ukrainian farmer, one of his first kind of fathers, and finding kind of a fisherman's language of how to. Sorry, I've got all the sirens of how to kind of communicate that way, and to also just have just that silence and that nodding. Um, Stories about getting his first kiss, where a girl smiled at him in school, and that was so important to him. So much like, oh my God, someone actually noticed me and smiled at me, and biking by her house, pretending to fall off his bike. And when she came out and leaned over him, he reached up and kissed her, which is very bad, very bad. That's like sexual assault, but is also just sort of sweet. And him lying there, smiling as she runs back to the house, shrieking. Um, um, and Stories of you know just having kind of really private moments of, like, going, they were like, camping somewhere with like a farmer family. The Ukrainian farmer from the beginning unfortunately died fairly shortly, like a year afterwards. But him with this family who didn't really understand him. They were very plain farmer folk, and he went off, them camping along this river, and him fishing, and going down the stream and finding small fish, which he knew was a good thing because it meant there would be much larger bigger predator fish to find, and him struggling and fighting, and with a fish on the thing, and playing it back and forth, and bringing it up, and then once he had it, saying like, and as he had it and it was laying there gasping, it was already kind of, its beauty was dying. It's like it's a fighter, and its beauty is already dying in captivity. Him letting it back into the water, and him going back to the camp and getting laughed at for having wasted his time. And it's like, no, and I never told them about it. And it's like just holding that in. There's a lot of stories here about him just finding a lot of peace and a lot of centeredness, walking, being in nature, observing beautiful ducks, water geese, just how gorgeous of creatures they are. And I have to say that, as someone, I kind of grew up in Kelowna, which is this like town, but I lived on the edge, and being able to, in the summertime and stuff like that, just walking into the woods was really important to me for my mental health. Living with my alcoholic father and kind of deteriorating family, being able to walk into the woods, into that kind of silence, away from kind of bullies at school and all that, was like really important to me. And I can, you know, obviously I have no clue of the kind of the toughness of someone like his life. But I do have I feel that connection of nature. And obviously his is more, even probably more, much more profound level of that just because of his native history, um, and much more of a tradition, of a native tradition of being connected with the land and stuff like that. Um, there is parts of the book that are like, he's very much, as an Ojibwe man, he very much is of the opinion that we need to talk, um, natives and other Canadians, that there needs to be plain talk, like across the back fence of neighbors chatting, that we've gotten a lot of misinformation, fed a lot of bullshit. I think I can definitely say that on the on the white settler side of what we've been educated of what our history is and what it actually is, having read Clearing the Plains just recently, and that shaking a lot of my concepts of what Canada is. But him very much being of a thing of kind of healing. And there's a part of me that wonders, is is this book written for Native people to find that kind of healing and thing, or is this um, always going to be wary of stuff that's like, is this here to make me feel better as a white settler Canadian, because I don't think I should feel that way. I hope it's not trying to. Um, I'm wary because I'm worried that like I'm going to be tried. I, you know, as a white middle class Canadian, am I just going to be drawn to books that are going to make me feel comfortable? And is this book going to make me feel comfortable, I guess, is my question. Because if it's going to make me feel comfortable, that would be not a great thing. Um, that said, he's really talks in a very kind of plain, forthright way. I mean, I can see this guy being a bit of a hard ass. I can see that maybe he might actually have been kind of difficult to live with, this fellow, as Richard Wagamis. He might have been a difficult fellow because of that plain kind of hard, not hard, but um, firm, stern um, voice. It's interesting. You really do get a sense of him. And I mean, a part of his story in here is teachers, is people who recognized that he had a voice, that he could be a great writer, that he was using writing because he knew, because of his loneliness, because of his isolation, being amongst kind of very plain talk farmers who weren't really into stories and imagination, and he saw the creativity part of himself, part of the native part of himself, um, and um, getting praise also helped feed kind of the hurt and the sadness and the loneliness in there. Um, that that this is somebody who's definitely hurt, damaged. That I know from reading his Wikipedia page, there's a lot of um, hard times he's going to go through. That there's going to be heavy alcoholism and stuff like that. Um, but that something like the writing was there to count, to help him to to survive and to develop as a person. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So it's I'm finding it very touching, very kind of like, oh, just going. It's like story after story. It's not like super chronologically, like, this is this year, this is that year. It's like more. It's like vignette. Really well placed. Really well kind of taking us through years, taking us up through teenage years. Um, him. One of the last stories being about him being at a a friend of his adopted family's farm, and there being a Shetland cross pony which was beaten, had been beaten and overtrained, basically brutalized, so that it wouldn't let people near it. Um, and the family had gotten it before they knew that this was the case, and he basically horse whispers the dog, this horse, just gently talking to it, and just saying, like, how much of a kinship he felt with animals. And you can definitely see the kinship he feels with an animal that's been beaten, that's been abused, that has never known love, and that he was able to give that to that creature. And saying, like, when he watched that horse with this family's daughter, and the daughter being able to ride it and love it now, it's like he felt like a parent. And it's like, yeah, you felt like a parent to that horse. He gave that horse something that um, perhaps he himself hadn't gotten, which was quite beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So that is book one of One Native's Life by Richard Wagamese. And I will most definitely be checking in with more of that later. Bye for now.